everyone, this is Kristen Hinton here at Aperture Education, and welcome to the SEL and After School webinar. We're so happy to have you with us during this busy time of year, so thank you for carving some time out of your day. We have a wonderful panel of presenters here with us today, so I'm going to kick us off so you guys have as much time with our panel today. But before I introduce our first speaker, I want to share just a couple of things that will make today's presentation a little easier and more fun for you. So if you look over to your GoToWebinar control panel, you're going to see several tabs. If you have any questions during today's presentation, please feel free to type those into the chat box, or you might see a questions tab and we'll cover them during the reserved Q&A section for today. If you look a little bit further down on your control panel, you'll see a tab labeled Handout, and this is where you're going to find today's slide deck as well as a full case study from one of our presenters if you're interested in reading more about them. So to kick us off today, I have with us our Director of Sales and Business Development, Mark Kirsch. So Mark, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you. It looks like you may have a little trouble logging in, so are you on with us yet, Mark? Okay. So I'll go ahead and get us started with, let's see, Mark might jump in just a second, so sorry about that. But I'll go ahead and jump into Aperture Education. So we are a social emotional learning company. Our presenters are going to be talking to you a lot about the Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment, which is our primary SEL assessment that we are focusing on. So they'll go into a lot about that, but please look for some information on our assessment, which I'm going to be sharing with you in a minute, on how you guys can take a free trial and learn a little bit more about that. But I'm actually going to go ahead and hand it off to our first presenter, which is Future Ready Columbus. And Marguerite, whenever you're ready, we will go ahead and get started.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Marguerite Jade. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Future Ready Columbus. We are a public-private organization focused on supporting cradle to career for the children and families of Columbus. So we're members of the Strive Together network, and our K-12 focus is really on the development of a community of practice for out-of-school time providers who are funded by 5 main funders in the Franklin County, which is Franklin County Jobs and Family Services, Franklin County Children's Services, United Way, ADMH, and the City of Columbus. So those 5 providers were hoping to build a community of practice where out-of-school time providers would look at data to inform their practice. So they wanted to engage in a continuous improvement practice, a continuous improvement program around using data. So at the start of our program, we developed a program that was both around using EWI data, and at the beginning of the process, our leadership really wanted to focus both on the whole child and really talk about emotional intelligence as a cognitive skill. And so they brought SEL into that EWI conversation to make sure they could speak to both, to the whole child. So what we do with the partners that we work with is build a community of practice around continuous improvement using both social emotional learning, EWI data, through a continuous improvement lens, or through a continuous improvement process with an equity lens. So we meet monthly with we have 50 providers that are funded, 50 providers that are funded by those agencies that serve children out of school time. We meet with them monthly. We also have small affinity groups. So because it's such a large group, we have some smaller groups that we meet with that are sort of our agencies that have big footprints, like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, City Year, ETSS, some organizations that have multiple sites across the city. We also have a smaller parent engagement work group for agencies that work specifically around with parents. We have a group that also meets monthly for providers that work with high school students, and we have another group that works with new American families. So we work with our partners in a way to sort of develop how do they refine their practice in ways that support that inform the decisions they make around the children they serve. And so we do it through, the way we do it is to bring in new providers, and we onboard the providers on the SEL dashboard, through both doing our frontline, the people who are working with children, and also our organizational leaders. We offer monthly webinars where we talk about we use the webinars from Aperture to sort of talk about social emotional learning and how they, to sort of refine their practice. And we also offer office hours. So I want to share with you a little bit of how our data looks when we're supporting our agencies. And so this is a slide deck that we actually used recently. One of the things we want to do is sort of help our agencies tell their organizational story, to really begin to get them to think about how are you telling the story of your organization through the lens of data, through the lens of research, and also through sort of the lens of the work you do and the families that you impact. And so we used our summer 2017 data as a model of this is how Future Ready tells our story, to support the provider organizations to be able to tell their story. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see in the summer of 2016 was a pilot summer. So we just were at the beginning. We started the pilot for the Social Emotional Learning Collaborative in January 2016. So we had some school-time partners who began really thinking about using social emotional learning. And we had, at that time, we had 9 partners who, 9 of our 50 overall. Oops, there was some background noise there. 9 of our 50 providers were a part of the social emotional learning pilot. So all the 50 providers were getting early warning indicator data. 9 of them also started this pilot with social emotional learning through Devereaux. Those 9 did a school year pilot from January to May of 2016, and then we increased to about 25 programs over the summer. Some of our 9 didn't provide summer programming, and we added a few in. So you can see in the summer of 2016, we had just a small number of children who were a part of our summer pilot. In the summer of 2017, we increased the number of kids who had access to social emotional learning in the summertime dramatically. And so what I was trying to show our providers is sort of how they could use this data to tell their story and sort of an increase of dosage. How many kids are you serving through the lens of social emotional learning? And so if you show the next slide, the first slide sort of has the graphics. The second slide, there you go, helps them also tell the story, right? So not only are you showing the increase in numbers, but you're helping as you're telling your story to your board or you're telling your story to the community about sort of what that increase looks like. On the next slide, so those are the numbers, sort of a dosage increase. I'm sorry, can you go back? One of the things you can see in both the summer of 2016 and the summer of 2017 is that we do a rating at the beginning of the summer and a rating at the end of the summer. And you can see that we sort of lose kids at the end of each summer. So we wanted to unpack that a little bit. And in the next slide, we found that in our pilot year, we lost almost 19% of the kids in terms of the ratings. We rated 19% fewer kids. In the first summer we did it, but by summer 2017, we really decreased the number of kids that we lost from beginning to end of summer as we sort of refined our process and the ability to communicate with providers about the importance of using their data. So then we really wanted them to think about, so how do you know whether when you're using social emotional learning it has an impact, right? So if you look at the next slide, and this sort of slide goes in a series, we really want to focus with our agencies to help them understand why it matters and what ways does using social emotional learning matters. So with the agencies we serve, we share an enormous amount of research about the importance of social emotional learning, and we try to share it through both sort of really accessible documents like this offered by Aspen Seed, an infographic, and And so when you're helping your providers or you're helping your funders understand the importance, we provide data or provide research that shares why does this matter for funding, why does this matter for agencies, and why does this matter for the families that we serve and the youth that we serve. And so this is one of the pieces of data that we shared. If you go to the next one, we pulled out sort of some of the salient pieces. So why does it matter why this increase of kids have access to social emotional learning? It matters because they have an increase in test scores. They have an increase in academic content. It matters because teachers understand that there's a need for social emotional learning and they're not sure how to provide it. If you go to the next slide. So one of the ways that we articulate to our providers about the importance of it is because we try to help them understand the research behind what we're doing and why we're doing it. So if you go to the next slide, so when they're telling their organizational story to the funders around investment and everything else, they can explain the importance of how social emotional learning matters in an out-of-school time setting. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see sort of our, so we provide both the infographic data that is really accessible, one-page data, but we also offer all the companion data, right? So sometimes when you're working, when you have an audience of people, and whether it's providers or organizational leaders or funders, some people want the really accessible, easy, they need the numbers, right? Some people want the academic research behind it. So we offer both the numbers, as in the case of the fast facts. We also offer the academic research behind why social emotional learning matters, both for the development of a child and also for their both academic, emotional, and social growth. So this is another piece of research that we offer to our funders, to our providers, and to our organizational leaders as they navigate why social emotional learning matters in their setting. If you go to the next one. It's just a slide that sort of pulls out the salient pieces of the research that really talks about the interconnections, so the interconnections between social emotional learning and academic outcomes. So that if we want, one of the things we're helping providers be able to tell their story is if you want to have some increases in academic, you're also going to have to make sure that you have those increases in social emotional learning. If you go to the next slide. So this was our last summer. So when we're sharing with agencies, we want to help them share, how do you share data in ways that are going to have an impact? So this is the beginning of the slide. If you go to the next one, you'll see when you want to share the story that you're also sharing the story of not just the graph, but what does that mean in terms of the impact on children? That there was 59 more children who had growth in social emotional learning, or that showed strength by the end of the summer. And that's really like a 6-week window. If you go to the next slide, and the decrease in the need, the students who demonstrated need. And that shows not only just the data, but also the impact on individual children and the number of children that impacts and the number of families. Go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. We relate that both to the research that is foundational to social emotional learning and why that matters for those 115 children, less children in need, and the 59 more children in strength. And if you go to the last one, we tie it with the research that we shared. So our work is really around developing the capacity of these providers to offer social emotional learning at their site, to give them the capacity to go through this continuous improvement process and use that data to inform their practice, and also build a community of practice between these agencies who for a long time had seen themselves as competitors, who are now getting together and networking and sharing practice and sharing their plans and sharing their data in ways to inform their both their individual practice and our collective community practice around how we serve children in Franklin County and Columbus. And
Marguerite, it's Mark. I'm on now. I was having some problems with muting, but I wanted to just add that I think what you're seeing in Ohio is also a trend we're seeing in other states, and it's really encouraging. I think that we're seeing even around users of our tool, that folks that are using the DESSA to measure SEL, they're actually, we're finding a lot of different interconnected groups, whether it's at the state level or different foundation level or funding level. So there's lots of funders that are out there actually providing money that goes to these programs because of their ties. So it's really encouraging just to see, that not just your folks who really were some of the early adopters in this area, but also, some newer groups that are joining your fight, so to speak, and doing it in other states as well. So thank you.
Right. One of the benefits we really had is because one of our funding agencies was using a different measurement tool for reporting. And this summer, our funders, the providers, banded together and said, we are using a tool that doesn't really inform our practice, but we're also using DESSA, which informs our practice. And they lobbied to the funder to change the tool that was used to measure the work that they were doing. And so they lobbied, and so now the DESSA is the tool that the funder is using to as a reporting tool for their providers. And that
we saw that too. Yeah, we saw that too in like a statewide program that we do in Missouri, where they actually were able to eliminate multiple tools just by using the DESSA and adding some additional components. But it also helped the collaboration that they had with the school districts that they serve. And I know you guys do a lot on that side as well, which is really it's really pretty encouraging too.
Yeah, we've been really successful both with the school district and with community schools. So that's from an organization or an organizer, convener. Our role is really of the convener of these providers through this continuous improvement and equity lens. And we actually have Nikki Mills, who is one of our providers, to sort of share what does it look like. I kind of gave you the big picture umbrella view of what we do to bring these providers together and engage in this process. And Nikki Mills from Vineyard is one of our providers who can talk about the impact it's had on them at the actual child level.
Awesome. Thanks, Marguerite. Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki. I work at Vineyard Columbus in Westerville, Ohio. Actually, I work for Vineyard Community Center, which is part of Vineyard Columbus. And basically, our community center is an organization who aims to serve our community by providing felt needs, which includes our K-12 after-school program, a 4-star step-up to quality child care center, ESL classes, GED, health clinic, food pantry, legal clinic, things like that. Within all of that, my role is to serve as the program manager for the K-5 after-school and summer programs. And so why SEL? Why did we get into this? We really like this quote that you're seeing now. It's kind of in our program for years we had talked about SEL without really realizing that's what we were talking about. We said we were doing things like helping our kids develop character and good citizenship and things like that. And just our instincts told us, like most of us out there, that if youth knew how to better manage themselves, how to set goals, how to think optimistically, that we would see their academics improve just as a result of working on SEL characteristics. So we started to implement lessons to support that in our classrooms, and we weren't really sure what we were doing. We were facilitating lessons with our youth that revolved around goal-directed behavior and relationship skills and things like that, but we really didn't have a great framework or very good direction. We sort of knew that we knew that it was important. And so we began to hear about social emotional learning, and we were excited because we found language for what we were already valuing. I heard about the DESSA at a national after-school conference maybe 3 years ago, something like that. And I was excited because there's a tool to measure what we thought was not easily measurable. And so we were excited to even learn about it. And then our partnership with Future Ready, with Marguerite and her team, actually came about. Our grant writer was giving a tour of our building, and she knew that SEL was important to us. And the people who were touring with her had a connection. And so one thing led to another, and we were lucky to be one of those original 9 organizations to go through the pilot with Future Ready. This brought the DESSA to our organization, and we were so thrilled. So just while I talk about that for a second, I have some really cute pictures of our kids that you can see there. We were really excited about the DESSA because it brought intentionality and direction to us. We were well-intentioned before, but we just didn't have the tools that we needed. The DESSA helps us see where our youth are. It helps us see where they're strong. It helps us see where they're, typical. as well as opportunities for growth with our youth. The DESSA has also shown us that we are not always right. We may really think a child needs one particular skill set, and the tool shows us that there might actually be others that would be more valuable. And so we've really learned a lot by just looking at the scores and the data. It allows us to see trends in our kids and in our program as a whole, and we're able to see just where we can help our kids become stronger. Marguerite always talks about forming adult response to respond to the student need, and that's what we're really trying to do. We look at what they need, and it results in us going way out of our comfort zones, ditching the plans that we thought were so great, and making sure that we're addressing the needs that the tool shows us that our kids have. One example of this was last year we used scores to completely restructure one of our classrooms. Our scores from our kids showed great need in some areas, and we realized that we were sort of doing SEL in a compartmentalized fashion. We were sort of teaching it on, Mondays and Wednesdays, and it just wasn't working for us. Our kids needed more from us for that. So we realized that we needed to integrate SEL really into everything that we do. And so we completely restructured this classroom. I think we've got maybe one more slide of our kids that we can peek at while I continue to chat. So we were doing this complete restructure. The most important part of that for us was to get our staff on board. This wasn't super difficult because our staff really values SEL, but anytime we have change, that can cause fear or hesitation. But we just gave a really detailed structure to our team, and we spent time as a team brainstorming about this new design for our classroom and getting our team's input, trying to troubleshoot potential areas. And our team was just amazing at implementing our new structure. So again, we were moving in the direction of integrating SEL into the fabric of everything that we did as much as possible. We used to have days that looked like this. The kids came in, they did homework support, math or literacy, a little SEL, a little art, a little gym time, and it was crazy. We had sort of compartmentalized SEL, like I had said, and so we redesigned the classroom. Now we have one focus per day, and we try to take a really integrated approach to our social-emotional learning. We began, just to let you know about how we're doing this, we began by incorporating literacy into a social-emotional learning as much as possible. We utilize read-alouds. We have written reflections about lessons, and so we try to, every time we do literacy, we try to pair it with SEL. And so here's what our redesign looks like. So I think we've got a slide to kind of show you a little bit about what we did. Every day begins with homework support and learning centers and then dinner. And then each day of the week, we saw that our students really needed deeper dives into the topics that we were doing, and they needed us to spend more time than we were allowing. So we redesigned our week to look like what you see on the screen there. So just a quick run through on that. Mondays, we have implemented small groups. We saw a great need in our youth to work on their relationship skills as well as self-management. And so we began incorporating small groups. First of all, it provides a safe place for youth to kind of share what's on their heart if they're in a smaller group than the whole classroom. It also allows us to provide some of the DESSA small group lessons. And so it's just really organic to work that in on our small group days. We group the children by similar ages. And then within that, by areas where they show greatest opportunity for growth. And so we're using the DESSA scores to help us group our kids together so we can be intentional there. And when possible, we try to have a peer mentor who has strength in that area. So if it's a group about optimistic thinking, we try to take a child who scored high there so that they can help influence their peers in a positive way. On Tuesdays are our goal setting days. We found that our youth were pretty low in goal-directed behavior as a whole. And so every Tuesday we set a goal. So we go from Tuesday to Tuesday. So each Tuesday we look back. Did we meet our goal? Why or why not? Spend some time reflecting on that. And then we set a new goal. And we incorporate optimistic thinking there as well. We found that works nicely with goal-directed behavior. Wednesdays are art days. We try to often incorporate art and SEL together. We find that that actually works pretty well. Sometimes art's just a standalone project. Thursday is SEL and literacy. So we read a story, we talk about relevant SEL components. And so the DESSA has changed how we pick our books for our kids to read. We're looking more intentionally for books that address social emotional concepts. so that we can discuss those in our read aloud time. Then we have a follow-up activity that ranges anywhere from a written reflection, skits, art, small group discussions, and things like that. Fridays are STEAM days. That's just fun. We love doing STEAM here. And then we have a wrap-up day. So after our STEAM activity, we break back down into our small groups, the same groups from Mondays. And we just talk about how things are going. A lot of times we talk about the weekend that's coming up. A lot of our youth are heading into sort of unstable situations as they head into the weekend. And so we talk about that. We talk about how can we use the tools that we've learned, you know, not just to survive our weekend, but to thrive through our weekend. The students have responded really, really well to the structure. I mean, there's always an adjustment period, of course. But, you know, they know what to expect every day. They really like the structure. And then, you know, we're able to dive more deeply into the content. The children were able to spend time learning and engaging more with the topics, which is showing greater gains in their growth. We like this model so well last year that we're using it in all of our rooms this year, and it's pretty successful so far. So far, so good. Okay, so some of our days, you notice that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do have direct instruction for SEL. So we try to integrate it in everything that we do, but Tuesdays and Thursdays specifically, we pull a lesson from the DESSA provided materials, or we may supplement with things that we either find elsewhere or write ourselves. You know, we spend time talking about the strategy. What do we know about it? How have we used it? You know, how can we use it better? Every time we do a lesson with our kids, we set a goal for it. We go through the lesson. We try to keep it really interactive to keep them engaged and interested. One thing that we're doing now is we also try to take SEL to the gym whenever we can. Anybody who works with kids knows that the gym is a very popular place, and our kids love to go to the gym. So we try to incorporate intentional activities in the gym as well. So team building games, games where we need to rely on healthy communication. Competition, we all know, can get a little crazy. So we talk about managing emotions and self-management when we're in the gym. Set goals for our teams, set goals for fitness and things like that. And then after each recreation lesson, we have a 2 to 3 minute kind of a debrief, sort of a chat. To talk about, you know, what went well with our gym time today, what didn't go well, how can we make it go better next time. Other things that we do on our direct instruction days, we have a word wall, which unfortunately I did not get to grab a picture of, but we have a word wall. So those of you who've seen word walls know that you put new vocabulary up as we learn. So as we cover different SEL terms, we put them up on the word wall, and that helps us have consistent language in our program between our kids, between our staff, our volunteers, parents. So yeah, we have those words posted around our room to be helpful. So lastly, just some results. You know, basically we're seeing the children improve academically, they're improving socially, they're improving with their communication, even with their parents, which is awesome. They have language now for their emotions. They're learning to set goals and actually take steps to, you know, toward achieving those goals. Families are having conversations around SEL. We send home the kind of the take-home component. We're hoping to integrate parent workshops into our just sort of our framework each year and start to educate parents a little bit more about what we're doing. Yeah, it's just been a really big major paradigm shift for us. The DESSA has been an absolute game changer for how we guide our programming. We used to plan out a year ahead of time and try to be really on top of things, and now we follow the lead of the DESSA results, and so it's a little crazier. It takes a ton of time and thought on our part, but it's absolutely worth it. We're seeing great growth in our kids. You can see the numbers on the slide from last year where we had students moving up in categories. You know, just like Marguerite says, we form our adult response to our student need, and you know, the gains that we're seeing are fantastic. We're very thankful for the DESSA, with the structure and the parameters that it provides for us, and everything else that comes with it. We use the foundational practices in our staff training. Yeah, it's been a really helpful tool for us, and so hopefully it was helpful to learn about how we're using it in our organization.
Wow, you know, thank you, Nikki. I'm actually kind of in awe about all the great things that you've said. This is actually my first time really chatting with you, and I'm just really excited, and I hope everybody who's listening either live or as a recording really takes note of some of the skills that you guys are putting in place in your organization. One of the things that stood out was just the fact that you said, SEL is in everything. I think that's something that we see for sure across the community programs that are having really high impact in the areas that they serve. Something that Marguerite said, just tying in, funding partners and families all need to have that same shared vision. And even though, like you said, social emotional learning may be something that happened in those spaces, if we help give intention to it, you're gonna see these results just naturally occurring. I love that. The different groups can come together and really focus on what we know about the kids and how we can help build their skills. And somebody who's doing a great job of that is actually going to speak next. And I know the kind of the biggest part about Bill's program and what I've always gotten from it over the years is just how he looks at acquiring SEL skills for their kids, and how important that is within the community. And like we said too, it's the funding partners and families. Partners aren't just the businesses. They aren't just the schools. It's everybody that you're working with and that these kids kind of interact with on a day-to-day basis. And everybody has a stake in that because we all want to see our communities grow and prosper. And so, I think one of the things that's commonly stated is that, when they grow up, they're going to be hired based on the skills that they have, the concrete skills. Can they pull together an email? Can they do a spreadsheet? But what they get fired for are typically those social skills. If they can't work well in groups, if they don't have an optimistic outlook about their work environment, if they can't self-manage, so these things are very critical. And I think that's why everybody is joining us on the line today. And I'll let Bill tell us a little bit more about the importance and the things that they're seeing in their program, and take it from there.
Sure. Can everybody hear me? All right.
There's a little bit of an echo, Bill. Sorry about that. It might be that you mute your computer if you're on your phone, but go ahead.
Yeah, my computer's on mute. Is there still an echo?
Yeah, just a bit. I'm not sure why that's happening. Kristen, any ideas?
Bill, are you still with us? Okay, let's try this again. Bill, are you there? We're still getting feedback.
Yeah, I'm still here, but every time I talk, I get some feedback here, and I don't know why.
Maybe try, do you have any volume coming through your computer? Maybe try muting, like putting the volume all the way down on your computer too. Sometimes if it's feeding back into your phone, it'll create that buzzing loop. Sorry, everybody who's on the line. We're just wanting to make sure that you can hear everything that Bill has to say, so that we have a really nice experience here.
Yeah, I'll try it again.
I love technology, guys.
I'm wondering if I should just X out of my computer and just talk into the phone. Does that help?
Yep, that should help. Okay, guys, so a little improv here. We actually have some fun poll questions that I'm going to run really quick as we're waiting for Bill to join us again. So I'm going to pop up a couple questions for you guys. The first one is, SEL shows a direct correlation to an increase in grades and test scores. What % do you think SEL has been shown to improve? And we have a couple of options, 1.5%, 11%, 2%, or 7%. And I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to answer that. Looks like there's a bit of a tie between two. Let's see. Most people are choosing, looks like 61% of people chose 11%, which is correct. So yeah, it does, there is a direct correlation between SEL and raising grades and test scores by 11%. And I'll do one more poll question. The DESSA can be used to measure my program's social emotional programming. Is that true or false? So it looks like about 68% of people think that that is true, and that is true. Mark, if you want to maybe talk a little bit about how the DESSA can be used to measure a program's social emotional programming.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the questions that the 32% have on why they think it couldn't measure it. Mainly because the Devereux Student Strength Assessment is a tool that looks at key social emotional competencies that, in a strength-based way, that all kids should have to be successful. It really is a kind of a very easy way to look at how those kids acquire those skills, how they keep those skills, and how they demonstrate them, as well as different ways that we can, do some interventions that, Nikki mentioned, everyday activities tied directly to, whether it's optimistic thinking or goal-directed behavior or self-management. You're really building these skills. We've seen a large variety of programs from all across the globe even that use the DESSA to look at the effectiveness of the program that they're, what effect it's having on the kids. And it can even be a literacy program. We use, a lot of the Y Readers programs for the YMCA will use the DESSA because they look at the different skills that these kids are building. So they look directly at the impact that it does have. And, like Nikki said and Marguerite said, social emotional learning is really in a lot of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. Now you're just able to, if you're measuring it, you're able to have a lot more intentionality. Kristen, if you want to go to some of Bill's slides, I can talk a little bit about it while he's trying to get back on. I know that this is, we're struggling with his audio feed, but if you want, I can go a little bit and see what I can cover while he's, working at getting back on. I don't want to keep everyone I can stall. I mean, I'm good at that, but I'm sure with everyone taking time out of their day, we want to make sure we're taking advantage of that time and not wasting it.
Sure. And I've just gotten his deck started, so whenever you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead. So, Bill Bretzer's program, the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Cincinnati, is a part of a larger community impact group that is funded by the United Way. And they really act, the United Way acts as kind of the convener, the oversight. In year one of the program, the United Way did a lot more hands-on. They were managing every program, how they measured, what they shared. And then more recently, they actually gave a lot of that control back to the individual sites. I know that, the Boys and Girls Club, they have, 10 sites, 3,500 kids, grade K through 12. And through their program, I mean, they've seen a lot of increases in reading and math proficiency. We've looked at their reports that they send out to their funders at the end of each year, and it's always really encouraging. They look at that, kind of that last bullet, which, if it was my slide, I would put that bullet as probably number one, just because I think it's so exciting the way that they look at, 90% of the kids possess the social emotional skills necessary for success. Now, it took a while to get to that number, They have seen steady growth, and there's yearly learning loss, just like there is with academics. Kids that get away from the program or come back. You do have to have some consistency with showcasing these skills with the kids. But that's why, the way we look at it with the DESSA, it's all strength-based. So, everything's positively worded. You're looking at using the kind of the outlook from either the teachers in the classroom or the after-school professionals, or even parent input. You can see kind of which skills are they not seeing. And if you see that there's a lack of those skills, it is a direct action that you can take to actually go and show them what those things are. Whether it's, does the child take responsibility for his or her things? Do they show up to the room prepared? Because you can imagine, like in Nikki's case, if they're trying to do their Wednesday routine and only 20% of the kids show up ready to participate, it's not going to work. So that's why you build some of these skills and you make sure that you are teaching them the right way to approach these different everyday skills, so that they can have success both academically and in the rest of their life. And I think what the slide means by 90% possess those social emotional skills. They're looking at only 10% of their population is still within that needs range. And as I'm kind of hitting on the fact that if they show up in the needs range, it's a need for instruction. It means that you need to work with those kids and continue to intervene, to do small group activities, to do take-home lessons, and really continue to kick it in and do more work with them. All right, go to the next slide, Kristen. So, they're, as I mentioned, they're kind of looking at their pre-post testing. The national norms for the DESSA, kind of looking at it from an entire population, any population tends to have about 16% of kids in the needs area. I know throughout the United Way and some of their programs, they serve different groups. I think I saw a couple of folks on the line today that also work in some of the other programs. But they, some of them serve a more high need population. Maybe they have a little bit more of a bigger achievement gap that they're trying to close. Some of them are traditional after school care or before school care, and some of them are summer groups. So you're getting a different mix of kids, which can, kind of show a little bit differently on those results. But that's probably why, when you're looking at that pre-test data, they had 24% of the kids in the needs area. But it was really great that they, the way that they look at their data, and it's actually something that I've even shared with some of our other national programs based on the work that Bill and his team have done, is, they look at 61% of that group were moved to another category. So it's that, that stat from the previous slide of 90% have social emotional skills, either typical or strength. So what they're most excited about is, are they moving those kids from a need to another category? Typical is not a bad thing. In this case, we didn't want to put average in there because no one wants to kind of look at their kids as average, but it's typical means, they're showing the typical amount of social emotional skills within that space. So, kind of a cool thing too, you're looking at, 90% of their members that were pre-screened as typical or strength were staying there. There are a lot of cases. There are kids that will drop their scores. They'll go from a typical to a need, and even some more extreme cases, you'll see kids that start the year in a strength category. They're very positive. They're really excited, but maybe they have some of those life events that are happening that, they didn't have enough resilience to kind of counteract. So you see kids that maybe they're going through a divorce in their household. Maybe they have a violent interaction with family or friends. Bullying. You'll see a lot of these things that really can manifest as looking at their DESSA scores. You can kind of get that early warning indicator and kind of see right away that there might be some reasons why that's happening in your programs. Go ahead to the next slide. So, all right, so not as easy for me to present on the YPQI data, but I know that they're, they do a lot of work with the, the program quality indicators, and they look at, are the after-school programs doing a quality job of implementing their everyday activities. I don't know if Nikki or Marguerite, if you use the Weicker tools at all, if you wanted to talk a little bit about how that works. Do you guys, you'd probably be a little bit better equipped to speak to that if you're still on the line.
We don't use the YPQ.
You do, or you don't?
We do not. No.
Do? Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's one of the areas where I can't talk a ton to, so I apologize for that, guys. Why don't you move to the next slide here? So, Boys and Girls Club of Greater Cincinnati use the DESSA data to enhance social emotional learning in a few different ways. So, I know that it's the way that Bill and his group have looked at it kind of in the past. It's kind of a circular relationship of the scores that they see on their DESSA and some of these other items. So, attendance frequency is one of the things that is kind of interesting. Like, you can look at, kids that are attending more frequently tend to have more strengths, but then also kids with, with strengths in social emotional learning tend to attend more frequently. So it's kind of, the more dosage that you can have with your programming, obviously the better effect it's going to have. But then, also if they're there, they get more interactions and they get more positive, effects from an after-school program. So it is kind of, it's the, whether you look at, is it the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? There's definitely a relationship to attendance and the social emotional skills. And it kind of acts as a early warning indicator of sorts. If you see, the kids' social skills start to drop, they're likely encountering some, challenges, and they're very likely not going to keep coming to the program. So you can use it a little bit as as an early warning indicator for that area. Building organizational capacity. I know that they've looked at, how the effects that they've had. They've looked at how their funding is placed. They've looked at where the skill building should happen with their own adults. It's a focus area that we're even investing in on our side, looking at the resilience of the adults and the skills that they have. One of the areas that our program actually includes is within those strategies that we have that are tied to the competencies, we actually have an adult self-reflection piece. So if you're looking at your group of kiddos that you're working with, and you see that, okay, their biggest needs are, goal-directed behavior and self-management, those are things that, the staff needs to learn about. So we have kind of self-paced professional development modules that are in there. So, you can really read up, you can learn about what self-management is, you can learn, are you displaying those behaviors in the classroom yourself? Are you modeling those correctly? And really, are you able to create that environment for the kids that stimulates their growth in those areas? So, I think that's a lot of how they look at their data from the YPQI. So the program area, are they creating the right environment, and do the staff have those skills that they need so that they can build the students' strengths? And and it's hard. I know that one of the things that we all see in after school is a lot of turnover as well. And I think that they've seen too that as the strengths grow and the kids have been acquiring more social emotional strength and just competencies in general, their staff tend to stick around longer. It's something that I've seen on the school side as well. I've seen that staff retention has been it's kind of one of those key areas when you start looking at what are the goals for your program. some of you, that might be number one. It might be staff retention. I know it's one of the big goals for YMCA programs that we work with, as well as some of the districts that they're looking at making sure their school counselors are staying around, because it's that consistency that the kids need to really create a valuable program. Looking at I know that they've done some youth quality interventions at all their sites. I know that they really did tie in a lot of that staff training and building that experience. And even doing some other additional kind of areas outside of their typical interaction in the after-school space. So they're doing, one-on-one mentoring, case management, and counseling. I think, Kristen, is Bill on yet?
I believe he is.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, I think we can, Bill. I was trying my best, so if you want to add.
I heard you. I heard everything, and I really apologize about the technical difficulties I was having this morning. You did a great job kind of summarizing what Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Cincinnati tries to do around social emotional learning and the DESSA data that we collect. And I know, you talked about how we incentivize attendance frequency, a little bit about how we built our organizational capacity, some of the things that we've learned. But one of the biggest takeaways is that youth program quality intervention piece. What we found was through our DESSA data, our baseline data, as you said, we were moving about 60% of our kids from that need category on a pre-assessment in the fall into the typical or strength categories come a post-assessment in the spring, which we thought was fantastic. But what we saw site by site was at some of our sites, because we have 10 of them, places where we had staff who were, very well trained and established, and there was little turnover. We were knocking it out of the park as far as building those SEL competencies. And places where we had some turnover or even some turmoil with staff, we weren't doing so hot. So what we really wanted to get at was that program quality piece, to get continuity across the board, not on what we were delivering, but how we were delivering it. Of course, curriculum is very, very important, but so is classroom management and using the time in the classroom and how you structure your program delivery to build those social emotional competencies. And what was wonderful about the youth program quality intervention methodology is that it can be used in art classes, those enrichment classes and gym classes, things of that nature, and it follows kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs to ensure that there's a safe environment, supportive environment, that there's interaction and engagement each time that you deliver a program. And what we saw after the first year that we implemented the YPQI methodology was, instead of moving just 60% of our kids from need to typical or strength, that number jumps to 87%. And it surprised me, it surprised our entire team actually, to the point that I sat down with them and even asked them, like, was this directly attributed to YPQI and how we deliver our programming? And they said yes. We became more intentional actually about SEL and again program quality delivery and not just the curriculum. So we view it as a more universal approach with 10 sites and about 3,500 kids a year. From where I sit, we've got to have kind of a one-size-fits-all and then scale it down and let our program team kind of deliver those more targeted programs. So we kind of have to have a blanket, approach to SEL, and YPQI was that answer. The other part of the answer was recognizing those program partners to enhance our competency building. We have to be able to recognize what we do really well and how we can continue that and replicate it, and what we don't. We maintain 1 to 15 staff to mentor ratios, so partnering with one-on-one mentoring organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters or Cincinnati Youth Collaborative is very important in helping kids who may need a deeper dive as far as building those SEL competencies. And case management and counseling. We've partnered with NECO, a mental health service organization here. Once again, that once the issues some of our kids face step into that mental health realm, we're not equipped to deal with that, but we can bring other resources in to help meet those needs. So that was, I know the time is waning here, the conclusion really to my presentation. Mark, thank you for helping me.
Yeah, no problem. I know, you know, the ties with the Weicker program is really intriguing, and I think that, you know, at least probably a few of the groups that are on right now are probably using the YPQI tool, or they're aware of it. You know, I think that it's something that you guys use, and something that a lot of our YMCA sites use as well. And it definitely has a correlation. You know, making sure that you have quality quality staff in place, and that you're doing quality implementation is really important. And I think that it's something that if any of the folks that are on have an interest in that, you know, I'm definitely happy to set something up, or we can have a group meeting with some of the folks from their organization to kind of talk about how can we tailor a program using DESSA data and some of that YPQI data to really make a big impact across your community, because we've seen from Bill's data that it is happening, and we've seen in other cases too it is happening, and especially in sites we've seen too in sites that are not doing quality interventions that we have some issues. It's folks that really are scoring low on that YPQI will tend to have the greater area of needs across their program, and that's from our perspective, and I've let you weigh in on your perspective, but it's the kids are feeding off of that bad experience, and that's kind of what I see too from a school perspective. Some of the districts that we see that are doing a really incredible job, and they're reducing office referrals, and they're really helping make a big impact, keeping kids in their classrooms learning. They're doing so because they are implementing high quality practices and procedures, and just kind of looking at the skills that they're building. So it's definitely easier when you have tools that can help you, that's for sure. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add about it? Otherwise, I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions for all three of our presenters here today. And we'll kind of let people enter in questions if they have them. Otherwise, do you have anything else that you wanted to add, Bill?
Any questions? Yeah, I just wanted to add, I want to make sure folks on the call know that DESSA and the social emotional competency building that we're doing and how we're using that data has been absolutely transformative for us. And it's also helped us, I know you touched on before I was listening in, raise money and awareness about what we do. DESSA allows us to quantify something that we've done here locally for 80 years, and we've never really been able to quantify and give hard data to it and make data-driven decisions. It's all been anecdotal prior to this. Absolutely transformative for this organization.
Yeah, I think we've got a webinar that we're doing this week with our it's kind of the third webinar of our grant series, and it's actually on sustainability. It's at 2:00 Eastern time tomorrow. But a lot of what I'm kind of hearing from you guys today is even going to go into what I hit on in that session, because I think right there, raising money and awareness and impact. I mean, I think those are probably the three biggest things that I would take away from this program, and these three groups that are doing a great job in their communities is, they're all doing that. They're all, they're getting the funding by showing the data. They're making the impact by understanding the kids, and they're telling people about it. And we're definitely seeing that, from a community standpoint, that's one of the areas that we're trying to help support our customers. So even in going to conferences and presenting alongside some of the groups like you guys is incredible for us, because we also we sit behind desks every day, and actually hearing how you're interacting in a classroom space or in an after school space, what some of the activities you're doing with these kids to see impact, that's just incredibly rewarding for myself and for Kristen and Karen, who's also on the line. I think it's a a great great approach, and we thank you guys all for doing that. I don't I see maybe a couple questions. Kristen, do you have any others that are coming in? I see
one question. How does the number of children receiving programming affect sensitivity of measurement? So, for example, they have a program that's intended for small groups of 4 to 8 youth.
Yeah, I think I don't know if anyone else has an opinion. I'll let the group kind of see if they want to go, but I think that we've seen you're not going to be able to get probably as easy of a breakdown of a traditional space if you're looking at those groups as 4 to 8. So like one kid in the needs area is going to be 25% need. So it's not going to give you as kind of the equally representative sample size, but you are going to get that high quality data. So you're going to be able to look at whether you're using it on one kid or 5 or 10 or 20. You're able to look at their individual strength areas or need or typical ranges and actually see, where are they as compared to a national sample. So, what percentile are they in for optimistic thinking or goal-directed behavior? So it will still give you perspective. And again, just hitting on the fact that it is that strength-based approach. You're not identifying, mental health disorders or any other deficits. You're looking at, what skills can we actually work on with these kids, or how well have they gained that skill through the program that you're working with. So hopefully that answers your question. Give about another 10, 20 seconds for any additional questions. Otherwise, I think we might be able to wrap up. Again, we're really sorry about the technical difficulties. I see the majority of folks have stayed with us and have listened in. So I really do appreciate all the time you spent with us. I didn't get another question. Let me pull it out. Sorry, give me a second. So Charlene is asking, I saw this question relating to measuring program implementation rather than impact of the program.
I think that was kind of related to the question that we had.
Oh, okay, gosh, she's adding to the implementation rather than the impact. Okay. I don't know, Bill, do you have any?
I'd come in. And if you guys have any questions at all, always feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. And just as a quick reminder, 3 things. Look for an email from Kristen after today's session. It will include the replay, so if you'd like to share all about our technical difficulties, feel free to do that. I know we had some wonderful content from our presenters, so thank you so much to them, and thank you for all of you for bearing with us today. Usually our webinars run a little bit smoother, but that's okay. It happens. Second, in the chat box, I have popped in a free trial link. So if you're interested in checking out the DESSA and learning more about it, looking at some sample questions, testing out some sample students, feel free to register for that. It is free for 60 days. No credit card information or anything like that's taken. It's completely free. And then if you are interested in joining Mark, myself, and another team on our webinar tomorrow about grants and sustainability, feel free to join us. That link is also in the chat box, so we hope some of you guys are free to join us. If not, just go ahead and register if you can't attend live, and we'll make sure to send you the replay for you to watch on your own. Like we said, we know it's a super busy time of year, and you've already spent a good hour with us today. So thank you so very much to our panel of presenters today. Thank you, Mark, and everyone that joined us. We hope to see you on a future webinar, and like I said, if you have any questions at all, we are more than happy to help. So have a great rest of your holiday season, and hopefully everybody can stay a little sane during this time of year. I know it's crazy busy, but we appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you soon. So thank you.